Good afternoon. Today at Toronto Police Headquarters, Homicide Detective Sergeant Mike Carbone will provide an update into homicide investigation number 45, 46, and 47 of this year. Detective Sergeant.
Thank you. Thank you, and thank you for attending this afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Today, I will be updating the media on homicides 45, 46, and 47 of 2016. On Thursday, August 26, 2016, sometime around 1 p.m., the Toronto Police Communications Bureau received a 911 call to attend number 10 Lawndale Road with respect to what was reported to be a stabbing. This dwelling is occupied by a woman and two men. Uniformed officers from 43 Division attended this address and located the lifeless bodies of three individuals. A woman and a man were located in a standalone garage next to this dwelling. Another man was located on the driveway near the garage. All three individuals were observed to have physical trauma and were pronounced deceased at the scene. The attending officers from 43 Division observed the now known Brett Ryan at the scene, where he was taken into custody. Prior to being taken to 43 Division, this individual was taken to hospital where he was treated and released. A male witness who was in close proximity to the scene was also taken to the hospital where he was treated and released. During the time of this investigation, a secondary scene was discovered on Queens Quay in the downtown area of the city. This is an apartment that is associated to Mr. Brett Ryan. When uniformed officers attended this address, they secured it and requested the assistance of the Toronto Police CBRN unit. I would like to assure the public that at no time was there any danger to any member of the public. On Friday, August 26, 2016, Mr. Brett Ryan appeared at the Toronto East Courts and is charged and is facing 3 counts of first-degree murder. During Friday, August 26, 2016, and Saturday, August 27, 2016, autopsies were performed on the 3 deceased individuals, which I'd like to share with you at this time. The cause of death of the woman found in the standalone garage was ligature strangulation. The cause of death of the man found in the standalone garage was crossbow bolt stab wound to the neck. The cause of death of the man located on the driveway was a single arrow's head stab wound to the neck. Today, and my message and my appeal to you is to have the public know and advise us if they had any contact with this individual by the name of Brett Ryan between 7:30 and 11:30 a.m. on the 25th of August, 2016. We're looking to speak to any witnesses who may have seen this individual in and around that time. I'm requesting that anyone who has to contact me directly at the Homicide Squad at 416-808-7400, or they can contact Crime Stoppers. I'll take some questions now.
Elaborate on what was found at Queens Quay?
As you can well imagine, it was a rather fluid investigation. We were drawn to that address. The officers quite properly contacted our specialized people who look into these things. I will not get into the specifics as to what was located in there. There were certain items in the dwelling. However, at this point, I can say there was no danger to any members of the public. It certainly now makes up part of this investigation, and that's about as far as I'll go with that.
Do you have any sense of what set this off?
That's the role we're trying to, that's our role right now, is to try and find out what set this off. I'm hoping that my appeal here today in reaching out to anyone who may have communicated with this individual either on the 25th or even prior to the 25th, I would like to speak to them. We certainly would like to speak to any of his co-workers. We understand he may have attended a local university, and if anyone had ever had any contact with this individual, I would respectfully request that they contact us at the Homicide Squad.
I only ask because first-degree murder suggests premeditation.
Right, and at this point, those are the charges that we have laid. We have sufficient and significant evidence that will prove that. Certainly, this investigation is very unusual, and we're still seeking and speaking to other witnesses. We have some surveillance video to go through. However, the two crime scenes are still being examined by our forensics people, but it's certainly still a ways to go for this investigation.
The items found in Queens Quay, when you say that they were not a false alarm, the items found in Queens Quay, not a false alarm, they were in fact substantial, something to be worried about?
I said that the items that were found at the Queens Quay address were not of any danger to any of the public. When the officers arrived, they quite appropriately contacted our specialized people. Once they entered, they determined that there was no public safety issue, and that's about as far as they'll go with that.
With one of the men, you describe it as a crossbow bolt to the neck, the other an arrowhead stab wound. Were they two different weapons?
I can say that a crossbow was seized from the scene. Because this is currently before the courts, I'm not going to distinguish between the two methods of how these two individuals were murdered, but it's fair to say that a crossbow was seized at the scene.
Was it shot off, or were the bolts used as a stabbing weapon?
Again, I say that this is a case that's now currently before the courts. I don't want to describe and distinguish the two homicides. I think that's sufficient to say. I've given the cause of death. I'm hoping that my appeal here today will draw out more witnesses with respect to Mr. Ryan, Mr. Brett Ryan, and hopefully we can release some more information in the near future.
Detective, is it fair to say that there was more than one projectile used?
It's fair to say that, yes.
We
Is
heard
there
that
any
there
way
was
you
a
can tell
man
us
in
where he
hospital
worked?
with injuries. Was that Mr. Ryan who was in the hospital, or was there?
Two individuals went to the hospital. They were treated and released. I'm not going to get into the types of injuries they sustained, but one of them was Mr. Ryan. Another one was a witness, and they are, well, Mr. Ryan, of course, is now in custody, but the other individual is home.
No charges related to the fourth victim, or the fourth person hurt?
We are still investigating this occurrence. If it's appropriate to lay some charges in the case of that other individual, then we will do so. But right now, Mr. Brett Ryan is facing 3 counts of first-degree murder.
Is his fiancée helping you out at all? Has she been speaking to you? Because she would presumably.
We are getting a great deal of cooperation from the people surrounding this individual. And again, my appeal here and my message is to reach out to as many people who knew Mr. Ryan. I expect there are some people that have not yet come forward, and this is my appeal here today, is to try and in fact reach out to those individuals. They may be able to supply us with some more information as to why this occurred. Okay?
Can you tell us anything about his job, where he worked, or anything kind of industry?
Well, this is what I'm hoping I can get directly from the individuals that either employed him or had worked with him. So without actually releasing information about what I may know about where he worked, I'd prefer if someone actually came forward and gave me that information directly. The investigation was very, very unusual. When we became involved, the identity of the 3 individuals individuals that had been murdered was still not confirmed. There was a publication ban placed at that time obviously until we had completed our jobs. That may change in the near future, and I expect that it might. I believe he's returning to court on the 2nd of September, and that may change. Okay?
Detective, the accused was convicted of some bank robberies going back to 2007, 2008. Do you know much about that investigation, or do you know how much time he served?
I know that he had faced those charges. Off the top of my head, I do not know how much time he served. But I know a little bit about the robbery cases. It's not something I'm prepared to discuss at this point, but I am aware of that, yes.
Crossbow that was seized, do you need to reload this sort of weapon, or do they have multiple bolts in each?
My understanding is, and I don't profess to be an expert in crossbows, but it is one of these actions where it does take some time to draw back the bow and then insert the actual bolt into the channel and then fire it. So I'm not aware of a multiple shooting crossbow. If there is one, it'll be the first I've heard of it. But you're right, it does take some time for this to occur. Okay?
Were both men killed by the same crossbow bolt? Sorry, were both men killed by the same crossbow bolt?
No.
Have police had any dealings with Mr. Ryan between the bank robbery convictions and this incident?
I'm not aware of it.
Detective, have you been able to figure out the time frame? What time did this attack begin, and what time did it finally come to an end?
We do know, we have a time frame. My appeal here today is to try and identify anyone who has had any type of contact with this individual prior to the time frame that I've given. I've given a time frame, and I know what it is, but I've expanded it a little bit just to see who this person may have had any contact with prior to the homicides occurring.
Did the murders of the two men happen within minutes of each other, within seconds?
That's not something I'm going to share with you today. Okay, folks?
Detective, can you tell us if mental illness is potentially an issue here?
That's not something I'm going to comment on.
When you said you went to a local university, did you mean now or in the distant past?
Recently, most recently, I went to a local university. Okay?
UT?
I'll just leave it as vague as possible so I can generate as many tips as I possibly can. I want an untainted version of people's statements as opposed to me supplying them with the information. Okay, folks? Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes today's conference.